Greetings, Pathfinders! I'm your host, Dustin Knight, and welcome to Infiknight Reviews. Tonight, the latest and greatest Pathfinder and Starfinder third-party reviews are being hosted live on the official Paizo Twitch channel. First, I do need to clarify that all views on this show are my own and have not been reviewed or endorsed by Paizo or any other creators of these products. My ongoing goal is to showcase and review as many third-party products as possible. If you have any requests for such products I haven't already given a thorough review, please feel free to contact me on social media or shout out here in chat. As an additional disclaimer, I am reviewing Boricubos tonight by Legendary Games. I did write quite a bit of the content in this book, and still do have some economic incentive for the sales of this book, so this is a biased review. There were many others on this project who wrote many other things, and I wanted to highlight their awesome creations and get people excited about this amazingly cool third-party campaign setting. So, is everyone ready to start the show? All right, let's go. There we have it. Oops, that is not formatted properly. 1 second here. All right, so Boricubos, The Lost Isles. This campaign setting has content for Pathfinder, Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and D&D 5th Edition. It was a Kickstarter, but you can now find it on DriveThruRPG. I will go ahead and drop a link that will at least appear into my Twitch chat. Haha. So, you can also get this print copy, which I love the feel of paper, so I do tend to analyze my books that way. Let me just put this down a little. There we have it. All right, so Boricubos. It is... There we have it. So Boricubos was primary author was Miguel Colon, who was inspired by his Puerto Rican heritage and kind of the heritage and culture and myths of this island, and did a great job presenting us with this fantasy setting that, as head of Legendary Games said in a recent interview that I saw on, believe, Board Game Geek, said that it's great to see these settings popping up with these kind of non-traditional or less used fantasy traditions. There's a bunch of stuff here from traditional Puerto Rican and Taino culture, other nations in the Caribbean like Cuba and Jamaica. It's really something special. It comes off as something special. I love it a lot. What do we have here? We need to, I'm reading chat. Alexander Gunna says, we need to get Minty and have Dustin review content and Minty declare hot or not. All right. So, out of the way, we're going to go ahead through this. This campaign setting, it is, like they say in the introduction, a different kind of campaign setting. It's steeped in the history and myth of all this lore. Plus, while it is its own setting, it's very easy to drop this into your existing home game. You could even put this, honestly, you could easily fit this in even a Galarian game. This setting, this area, these are islands. So naturally, you could pick any part of the sea that makes sense and be like, here are the Lost Isles. In addition, the content in here is more than usable in any setting. This book has bunches of archetypes, ancestries. It has an entire base class, the shaman. It has new spells, new equipment, magic items. It has some great deities that could be put into different settings, but it all does work best in Boricubos. And this setting is so awesome that playing a game in here would be awesome. Yes. And while this book was, like I said, written, you could get it for Pathfinder 1st Edition, Pathfinder 2nd Edition, or 5e, but I am reviewing the 2nd Edition version, as that is what my channel focuses on, 2nd Edition and Starfinder, which this is not for Starfinder. I suppose you could convert this to Starfinder, but that would be, you'd probably take the Pathfinder 1e and then do the standard conversion to Starfinder, but it is very much a fantasy setting, more than a science fantasy setting. So, bunch of information here about the city itself. You have information about all these different islands. Here's a pretty map. Each island really does have its own, even section of each island really has its own flavor, its own interesting tidbits, its own people, its own culture. They did a really good job stretching this all out here. There's stuff like the Karyayan is very much, apologize about the mispronunciation. There's a pronunciation guide in the back of the book, but when you get nervous, you mispronounce. But anyway, so the Karyayan, for example, is heavily influenced by the constant raids and attacks by the Sawagan Sea Devils and Adaros, whereas if you go to Guatabara, it's way more defined by its kind of the Zemi and the more the civil war that's going on. The setting is very much defined in its current age by the Civil War. To make a long story short, and without any spoilers that would be in the GM only section, there's a spoiler section here that I'm going to minimize. It has to do with there's this one benevolent creator god, and her first two children got along for a long time. One of them being kind of a god of war and victory and overcoming things, and the other one more of a chaotic good god with a lot to do with nature. And this all goes into each of the ancestries in this book definitely goes into how they view these deities, how they have their own sort of creation myths to do with these deities. And after a while, the god of war came back and had a big war with his brother. He left and then came back, had a war with his brother, and was killed. And the mysteries of how he was killed, why he died, how he lost the war, and the resulting conflicts from that, and continuing conflicts from that, very much define the cultures of this island. There's adventure hooks all throughout here that, again, I want to only skim through in case any GMs out there want to run this and your players happen to be watching. You don't have to worry about that. You could use this video to hype them up without worrying about any spoilers. As you can see through this book, by the way, the art in this book is fantastic. They were totally on their book here, on their game here. I love the design here. A lot of cool stuff. You have the deities here, the creator deity Ataba, Guabaka is the goddess of tropical storms. Boilina is the goddess of sun and volcanoes. They put in their full devotee benefits for the avatar spells, cleric spells, domains, favored weapons, what have you. All the holy symbols are all up here. It's what you expect for what you need to play any of these deities. Yeah. But I do really want to get into, and there's a lot of content for this because this is a 202-page PDF, and we do have the hours. So let's get through this. We start here. We have the Anabagua. These are very much like the first thing they remind me of are kind of like leshies. They are little plant animal. They're little plant inspired small creatures with the plant subtype or the plant trait. That they're kind of like, they were semi-immortal for a long time, or extremely long-lived, up until this thing called the Blight hit around the time the god was killed, and all the old ones died, and now they only live to about 200 years old instead of several thousand. So that kind of defines their culture right there. They're still seen by most of the other ancestries as guardians of nature and guides for their long-livedness. They're seen as like, yeah, you probably know more than me because you're several thousand years old. And they still kind of have that role, but they're younger, so they might not be the best at it. And that really, really helps define the difference between them, because there's some that are still old who happen to escape, and others who still believe that they are rightfully the guides of the rest of Boricubos, whereas there are others who are like, not really anymore, right, guys? We die like everyone else now. Yes, so, yes, Plant Girl, another Minty reference. All right. For heritages, you got a Blighten one that gives you some resistance against diseases. We have a carnivorous one that gives you resistance against swarms and additional success on grappling tiny creatures because you're like a carnivorous plant. So I like how these heritages are already being divided based on what kind of plant you are. I enjoy that a lot. You do have the Elder one, which essentially gives you a multi-class dedication feat. It's a lot like Ancient Elf. It makes sense. Got a jungle one that makes it really easy for you to survive in the jungle. It also lets you use your Siphon Life ability that all Anabagua get. Siphon Life lets you once per day touch a creature and do negative damage to it, and then choose another creature next to you and give it hit points. So it's a lot like the Siphon Life ability. I believe that's the 9th level ability from the Mystic Healing Connection from Starfinder. But if you take Jungle, you could use it to heal yourself as well. You get a Constitution and a Wisdom boost and a free boost. You get a Flaw to Strength, 25-foot speed, Common, Terran. You're a plant. You're an Anagueba. You have low light vision. You're small. Excellent. They have a Kelp one. It gives you a swim speed like you'd expect from living in the water so much. Like any ancestry, you have full feats here. You have stuff like different kinds of spores and poisons that your body naturally produces that you could throw out there. You have divine cantrips at will, as you are they were kind of the first ancestry made by the gods of Boricubos, so you are kind of seen as beloved by the deities. They get Restoration and Blight as a 2nd level divine spell at level 9 for a feat. They get bonuses to aiding. If you ever want to be the advisor to your party, this is a great ancestry for it. There's a lot of you could take every feat and have something where you're helping aid somebody. Like during your daily prep, one ally can request your advice. One time until the next time you prep, you could aid that ally as a skill check, even when you have it prepared to help. Meaning you could aid as a reaction, not an action plus a reaction, which, like, first when I read that, I'm like, that's really good. And then I'm like, well, it's only once per day. And honestly, like, I think it's fine. I think spending your reaction to give someone that bonus is just fine. I'm sure there's some way that you could totally break it, but it's once per day. For one ally who you have to choose in advance, it's probably fine. And I don't see enough people aid in encounter mode because of that high cost of the action economy. So I'm glad to see stuff in here that makes it relevant, and I want to see more. Got Ingrained Roots. You could literally root yourself down and make it so other people can't move you around as easily. Your big 17th level feat gives you Speak with Plants at will, which I love that as a 17th level feat, especially in this setting where there's a lot of jungles and forests and seaweed and the whole island is just erupting in life. It's perfect. If you were to play this in a urban setting where there's not as many plants to talk about, maybe you could take that as the 13th level feat instead. I mean, you could adjust stuff. If you feel like you need to. It does have a Breath of Life once per day, but you take negative damage equal to the hit points that you restore to the target. I really like that as a negative, because normally, like, when I see Breath of Life once per day, if I see Breath of Life at all on an Ancestry feat, that brings my alarm up. But once I saw that it was, but there's a negative penalty attached to that, that's really clever. I like that a lot. So really, really good job on this Ancestry. Like it a lot. I love the flavor. I love the illustration's really cool. Kind of like it's a plant girl. It's a plant people. I like plant people a lot. I like Leshies a lot. I like Anabaga a lot. Really, really neat. It would be cool too, honestly, a lot of these feats, I could see this Ancestry taking heritages and feats from the Leshy and vice versa. Like they are very similar, being nature spirits and plants. Like I'm always on board with with abusing the modularization of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Like, if you see a feat you like and it's like, oh come on, this totally fits. Like, just check out all them Dragonkin on Pathfinder Infinite. They are all fairly interchangeable with them feats, which is awesome. I mean, I'm always for more content, and when you think about content, you can't just think of it as how much content we have in total. Think of it as how much content you have for your character, because that's what you're thinking of playing, or if you're the GM for your monsters, for your campaign. All right. Scroll down. We have the Barakuden. They are kind of like a cross between a sea devil and a mermaid. Merfolk and a sea devil combined. Yeah, kind of like a merfolk and a sea devil combined. They're going to be best in a campaign where you have a lot of water. They do have only 20-foot speed and 30-foot swim speed. They do dry out over time unless you take one of the heritages, which will lower your swim speed substantially in exchange for not having to dry out all the time. They only come with jaws, but they do have a strength and wisdom boost, which is really good. Really good pair of boosts there, and D10 hit points. Again, good. Heritage-wise, you got coastal ones. They auto critical success on a swim check, which they have a swim speed, so not too much there. Deep water gives you dark vision, very useful, and your jaws gain deadly D4, very useful. Land Hunter is the one that most PCs will probably take, as it gives you a land speed, and you don't need to be immersed in water every 24 hours to maintain your skin. Shoreline lets you swim in stride based on the terrain you're in. You get to ignore difficult terrain while you're swimming, which it does happen. Remember, anything that halves your speed is almost always listed as this is difficult terrain. Entrench Barakuden lets you gain bludgeoning resistance against effects that require you to be grabbed or restrained, which that's a lot of monsters. There's a lot of monsters with Constrict in this edition. It comes up all the time. Feat-wise, they got your standard weapon familiarity. They use tridents, hand crossbows, and spears. They have their lore checks. And then they have a bunch of really fun bloodthirst feats, where when you deal jaw damage to your foe, you get some bonuses to your next attacks that round. You get a pseudo rage kind of thing at level 5, or an additional attack if you do this 2-action thing while you're benefiting from bloodthirst. So a lot of stuff there. If you wanted to play a Sahuagin or a Sea Devil PC, I think I would tell people, look at the Barakuden. Like, you could probably just use this. Of course, if you want to play Barakuden, they're really cool too. They have a lot of really cool stuff going on here in their backstory. They are defenders of the, not only defenders of the sea, but they're also kind of defenders of the land from the sea. They fight against the Adaro and the Sahuagin, who attack especially the northern islands of Boricubos. They're a really cool society. They're a really cool ancestry, and I would love to see some of my tables. You got stuff for wave sense, imprecise sense, so you can see around you. You can surge and move really fast underwater and then bite someone. Their final ability is a complete blood frenzy. It's you make a jaw attack against each enemy within your melee reach for 3 actions, and on a critical hit, you could also make a melee strike against that enemy. I think that's really cool. It is 17th level feat. It does have the flourish and open, so you're not going to do anything else, even if you're quickened. Like, this is probably going to be your only thing. I guess if you're quickened, you can move and then do this. I like whirlwind attacks, and restricting it to your jaws means, while there are ways to get reach, there are a lot fewer ways than if you had just this with any weapon. So it's well balanced, but flavorful and cool, and a great reference to there's a similar ability, I believe, on the Sea Devil Baron. So I like that a lot. The Colquhoun. They are kind of the Gripply of this setting. The Colquhoun. They are all about song. They have a very strong shamanic tradition. Their deity gave them the knowledge of how to make zemi, which are kind of an animistic totem like the one you see there, that has a spirit either coaxed or forcibly put into it. They then use that to defend the land and defend themselves. They have the rules here for the Create Zemi ritual, requiring you to do a check to kind of coax or force the spirit into the into your Zemi. They are a small race with Dex and Charisma as their boost, Strength as their flaws. They have low light vision and the Leapfrog ability, which gives them a bonus to jumping and reduces falling damage. So if they jump too high, they, won't regret it in the morning. They have a heritage called Night Colquhoun that gives them dark vision. They have a poison heritage that gives them poison damage to their unarmed strikes. They have a pond that gives them the breath control feat and a swim speed. It's interesting seeing them given that nice general feat and the swim speed, not just the swim speed. I appreciate that a lot. The Song Colquhoun gives you a bonus on performance checks to sing, and if you're and you can impose a check by creating a noise or distraction. Tree Colquhoun gives you Combat Climber. And while you're climbing, if you roll an athletics check, you get a critical success instead if you would normally just get a success. Great. First level feat, Coquane's Song. I like this one a lot. You could do a performance check against any one enemy within 30 feet and potentially give them a penalty to will saves and perception. Feels kind of like Bon Mot, but with performance. I like it. I like it, especially for Ancestry feat. It's flavorful. It's fun. And it lets you play froggy singing noises at the table, especially if you're on a VTT, which I always appreciate. They get a tongue whip feat, which all frog ancestries need. I love having that tongue trait. They have some feats here to help you create Zemi if your GM wants to go into that, especially if you play a shaman. That would be a very flavorful feat to take. And they can coax a spirit into the afterlife to make sure that it won't come back as an undead, which, while niche, there are plenty of campaigns, especially with all the undead coming out this year, that I'm sure that would be more than useful for. They have more feats for sensing undead around you, sensing spirits around you. They have feats for jumping high. They have feats for jumping far. They have feats for letting you use your tongue prehensilely to do a bunch of stuff even when your hands are full. They have feats to get a climb speed because you got sticky frog fingers. It is a really fun, flavorful frog ancestry that makes that whole singing, the Zemi and the singing parts of it really make it stand out from just another Gripply. While I could see some crossover here if you were to play a Gripply versus a Coqueen, sharing feats, sure. But the song thing is so heavy Coqueen that it is... I couldn't see that sharing with the Gripply. This is what they do, and they do it quite well. Specifically at level 13, they do have a way to stun with their singing once per hour. And at level 17, they even have a way to counteract spell effects called Dispelling Song, which very cool. There's some flavor about, in the Coqueen heritage, about the songs of one of the great spirits kind of giving them magic. I believe they might have been one of the first... ancestries to even get or learn the secrets of arcane magic, but that could have been a different one, and I could be misremembering. All right, so that is the Coqueen. Oh, by the way, they have this on every ancestry. They have a quirk. You roll a d8. They're just ideas for your character, or just go down it. They're just kind of ideas for your character. Like, for example, I carry the Zemi of my best friend with me. He was a warrior, so he's sure to bring me luck, and whenever I charge into battle and fight in his honor. You know, really, all these cool quirks could help give you character ideas, and they're also great for GMs. Like, if you just happen to have a Coqueen and you didn't really think about him too much, and the PCs start asking about him, and he starts to become a popular NPC, quick, go to page 37 to check out his reasons for adventuring and his quirks to figure out why he does what he does and what makes him different than others. Which, having those for specific ancestries is kind of fun flavor. There are a couple of elemental ancestries in this book. Unlike your traditional elemental heritages, like the Ifrit, these ones combine two different elements together. Like the Huracan is a living storm. It's a combination of water and air. So you're kind of like this twirly guy you see up here. You are a living storm. You have electricity kind of sizzling across you, and yet you are a living twister of water. They enjoy pranks. They regret losing their temper in case their pranks go a little bit too far. Some people take them a little less seriously because of that kind of fun-loving attitude that they have. They have a charisma and constitution boost. They get a dexterity flaw. They are amphibious and humanoid. The amphibious trait gives them some fun stuff that they could do with their feats. They also come with dark vision, like you'd expect from a elemental kind of ancestry. Doldrums are, let me take you on time. We're good on time. All right, we're going to go a little bit faster through this. They have, going through my favorites here, the Gale Huracani have bonuses to jump and telekinetic projectile as an innate cantrip because they are literally hurricanes just throwing stuff out there. Then, of course, you got your lightning, you got your tempest, so you got one that's more wind-based and one that's more electricity-based and one that's more water-based. Great, great, great. They can electrify their weapons. They have a kind of more cultural feat called Just Joking that lets them occasionally re-roll a failed coerce request or make an impression check. I like that a lot. I almost kind of wish that Just Joking was, instead of coercing, you could be like, oh, never mind, that was just a joke. So there's no coercion check, but there's no penalty. But this works just as well. Because, you know, if you could succeed or not critically fail, hey, that's just as good. They have a cyclonic push that lets them shove from far away. Fluid form lets them slip through stuff and squeeze more easily. And of course, they have a number of feats that will eventually give them a full-on fly speed. Their top feat gives them their Intensify Twister at all times, which normally lets them basically act like a Twister. They can that's their, I'm so sorry, that's their fly speed. Yes, normally their fly speed is 10 minutes, and their capstone feat at 17 lets them just fly around all the time. You have the Iguaca. The Guaca, they're the ones who found arcane magic. Yes. The Iguaca are defined by being one of the only ancestries who are populous on both sides of this civil war. They're kind of very mercenary. They have their own reasons for that are explored in spoiler reasons. They study magic and have a strong magical tradition. They are Dex Int classes with a flaw in Constitution. They are bird people, and they go along with a lot of other bird people. They have wings that let them travel further distances when jumping and lowers their fall damage. So they just kind of glide without any feats. But you could take feats, and you eventually get a full fly speed at level 13. Level 13. And at level 17, they have a feat that gives them a free action. You could fly up to half your speed as a free action. It's a flourish, so you can't use any other flourish feats. But still, free action fly at 17 is, even as a limited distance, really strong. Really strong. I don't think it's too strong for 17, but I do think it's really strong. They have stuff that enhances them it cements them as arcane casters. Free arcane cantrips or free access to potentially uncommon spells, or even the ability to get a metamagic feat as a 5th level or above ancestry feat. You could get a metamagic wizard feat as long as you meet its prerequisites. I like that. I think that's really cool because class feats and ancestry feats, class feats might be a little stronger sometimes, but the metamagic feats are pretty safe. Like, metamagic is the metamagic trait is well done enough that you're going to have a hard time breaking it. All right, the Tainem are the heritage of, let's just say, humans. They're the humans in Boricubos. They have the basic human traits, D8 hit points, 2 free ability boosts. Great, great, great. But they do have they have some unique ancestry feats in this book. They could re-roll a failed skill check once per day as a first level feat. They got a martial flexibility in here that lets them basically become trained in a different weapon every day via during their daily preparations. Great, great, great. If you ever thought I would like a few more options for 1st and 5th level human feats, here you have it. These work great in or out of Boricubos. I like these a lot. Especially martial flexibility I like a lot because I'm a big fan of wanting to change around my weapon when I find a new picture that looks enough like my token that I want to use it. Oh, man. The Wolakan are fire and earth elementals together. So if you remember the air and water elementals, this ancestry is fire and earth. So you have a lot of lava theme. They have a lot of stuff with foraging and crafting. They're all about, they take great pride in what they create, and they are known to be ready at a moment's notice and sometimes a little destructive. They do get the ability, especially the pyroclastics do get the ability emotional eruption. When your emotionals are riled, your inner flame flares forward as a reaction. When you fail or critically fail a saving throw against an emotion effect, you deal 1d6 fire damage in a 5-foot emanation and to the triggering creature. If they're in the emanation, they only take it once. And that increases about every 5 levels or so. So I do like that. I think that's really flavorful. You get that feeling of being this big lava elemental just exploding on someone. I like that a lot. They have other stuff. They have like volcanic eruption once per day. They could literally burst into the air and have a big torrent of fire beneath them. Kind of famous kineticist feat there. They could add fire damage to their weapons. They could get a little stronger if they take on harder to push down and harder to hit if they want to go up their earth side of things more than their fire side things. And their ultimate 17th level capstone feat is Elemental Form as a primal innate spell once per day. But they can only choose earth or fire. Sweet, sweet, sweet. Let's go ahead into classes. There are new class feats, and I believe some class archetypes. Yes, there are new class feats and class archetypes in this book. Alchemists get poison darts, toxic toxer. There's a lot of stuff in here about poisons, as there's a lot of jungles and jungle warfare in Boricubos, so you can imagine the kind of cool poison stuff they got here. If you ever wanted to use a blow dart, this is your book. This has it right here for you. I do love Elixir Burst. I want a special shout out to that. It lets you basically get a kind of splash effect on your elixirs when you throw them like a bomb. It will require. I think that's really fun. Being able to throw your elixirs at multiple allies, that's pretty cool. The barbarians get the Algolthu instinct, so it lets them swim. It lets them do underwater charges. It lets them transform into an aquatic creature as animal form. So if you want to be an underwater barbarian and you're in a campaign that could appreciate such things, check it out. The Bard gets a really fun ability called Ally Switch from the Mercenary Champion. It requires the Warrior Muse. When an enemy attacks you but hasn't rolled yet, and an ally is within your reach, you can switch places with your hopefully willing ally, and the ally will take the hit instead of you. Very helpful if you want to play a support bard and you can't take as big a hit as your ally, and your ally wants to protect you, especially if you have that champion in the party. And if you do have that champion in the party in harm's way, if you have a divine ally shield, this lets you throw yourself into the path of danger. When an adjacent ally is hit by a strike, you could step into the ally's space, pushing them back into your space, and you take the hit instead of the ally. Great reaction, super fun. It is using your reaction, so you can't use this with your champion reaction unless you get something that lets you use your champion's reaction and another reaction. But it is flavorful and cool, and I think especially multi-class champions are really going to love it. Clerics get things that let them talk to undead and talk to constructs and stuff that let them call spirits into their zemis. Druids get some anti-spirit stuff by basically ghost touch while you're wild morphed. Cool, cool. Fighters get some fun ways to parry magic, bonus to AC and saving throws against a spell. Investigators get away careful dodge, lets you, in addition to using devise a stratagem to modify a strike, you could use it to modify an acrobatics check to balance or reflex save, substituting your devise a stratagem roll for that check. They also get a feat called Watch the Watchers that give them a bonus to perception checks to spot hidden, undetected, or unnoticed creatures, and detect scrying as a focus spell. Which, yes, there are a couple of feats in here that give you focus spells that are pre-existing spells, and since they are largely utility spells, I kind of dig it. Because, I mean, they could have just written out everything detect scrying does and call it, I don't know, the Watcher watches. Sometimes I'd rather get more new content and go ahead and reference an existing spell. The Legendary Kineticist and Legendary Mesmerist both have feats in this book. Primal Affinity for the Kineticist lets you gain resistance to a bunch of different elements as a 2-action activity. And Primal Speaker lets you do your lore checks to recall knowledge about a bunch of elemental stuff. Mesmerist gets Natural Pact, which lets you get summon animal, summon elemental, and summon fae onto your spell list. So if you're using Legendary Games' other base classes, there's stuff in here for you. Magus gets Arcane Switch, lets him switch out what element you're doing in a spell that you're about to cast. Fun. Touch of Serenity from the Monk lets you basically calm emotions people when you flurry them instead of doing lethal damage. There's a new Oracle feat in here that lets you use better armor. There's a Ranger feat in here that lets you help defend a village against wilderness. Very much reminds me of the Erasteel hinterland prestige class from Paths of Righteous. So if you like that, there you have it. Rogue, they gave an innuendo feat. It's basically a skill check, skill feat. It reminds me of a skill feat. Bard could also take it. It lets you pass secret messages with a deception check. With specified rules as to what DC you're trying to hit to get certain higher messages, more words in your message as you pass them along. Cool. Sorcerer gets Draconic Siphon, so your dragon sorcerers can literally suck in a dragon's breath weapon and then blow it back at them. So it is niche for campaigns with lots of dragons, but hey, if you're playing Age of Ashes, there you have it. Summoner gets a feat that adds summon animal and plant and fungus to their spell repertoire, and Swashbuckler gets a feat that lets them use one for all to aid an ally within 30 feet that can see or hear you, and basically give them a Swashbuckler feat for a temporary amount of time. Which has an Ocean Patron theme, which has a lot of cool stuff in there. Excuse me about that. Water Walk, walking on water, bonuses for walking on water. Wizard gets some fun new stuff that it could do with its meta magic, such as making spells lose the manipulate trait, so that you could use your meta magic feat pseudo as a free action, but that's a much higher level spell, higher level feat. And then we get right into it, into the archetypes. This was the fun part I want to get into. Hope I'm not going too fast for everyone. Great book. If there's anything you can take away from this, by the way, it's Boricubos. Man, there's a ton of content in here. There's great, I mean, naturally, as a setting book, there's a ton of great stuff in here for a GM. You got hooks, you got an adventure. There's a whole adventure. There's 2 adventures in here, by the way. 2 adventures and a bunch of pre-gens that could work great with monster stats in case you want to use them as NPCs. Or stats as PCs. So this is a great intro to 2E. If you want to just use this as your primary setting, you can, because you got those adventures in there. It's also great to throw into an existing setting because they are just islands, and islands can go much more easily into a setting without people asking, why haven't we heard about this before? Because they're islands. I love it. So Archetypes of Boricubos. The Bahik so in the first edition version, you're going to see that these archetypes were for pretty much every class in the game. So in 2E, a lot of them are for one of 2 classes, especially for the hybrid classes. Some of them do stuff that some 1E classes do that we haven't seen yet in 2E, so there's a lot of cool stuff there. And a lot of them are just for existing classes. Like the Bahik is for clerics with the Cloistered Cleric Doctrine. It gives them natural healing, and it lets them collect herbs during downtime and then use the herbs to enhance their channel energy, or use their channel energy to enhance their herbs when they use it for medicine. Other thing it does is it does let you use healing font regardless of what deity you have. All Bahiks on Boricubos heal. Like, even if the deity normally doesn't give you healing, you are your groups, your villages, usually second in command and healer. Their big capstone feat does give them a pseudo focus spell, breath of life ish kind of thing. It's like within a certain number of rounds rather than as a reaction, and they could enhance their channel energy by using herbs, which they collect during downtime. Or they might have them on them if they take the right feat and they're in the right environment. But Blight Druids. Blight Druids suck energy out of the land and use it to enhance their spells. Like, that's the easiest way to talk about them. The limiter is not only do they have to be in a place where there's plants growing, but the place cannot be blighted. So there will be some battlefield movement here, because you'll blight an area depending on what high level spell it is, and then you'll be like, I can't use this again without moving 100 feet away. So it does limit itself to perhaps only once per battle, or you're going to give some extra thought to when you'll blight or when you'll just cast a spell, because you don't have to blight to cast a spell. It just makes the spell stronger. Specifically, it lets you convert damage dealt to negative damage, and let you potentially enfeeble people who, if you get a critical hit or the target critically fails its saving throw with the Corrupt and Magic ability, and gives you a cool new focus spell. Karakarako are Tainem. They're the human species in ancestry in Boricubos. They are a warrior archetype dedication. They are about being able to adapt to different environments. So it's like if you want, they have a feat here, for example, where you can, depending if you're in a swamp, you could ignore difficult terrain from swamps. If you're in a jungle, you get a climb speed. Ocean, you get swim speed. Desert, when you crawl, you could crawl up to half your speed rather than 5 feet. You get advantages for being in different terrains. A lot of this is you pick during downtime. It's not like Ranger in 1E where you pick it and now you better just hope the campaign stays there. No, you get to change during downtime. You adjust your armor, adjust your suit, put on different shoes, train a little in the morning, and you get the bonus. Cultist of the Dead God is about the dead god of war, Guacando. As he was a god of war, these feats are largely about being able to make people rage with a spell, which is something that's kind of missing so far in 2E. It gives you a focus spell called Incite Rage that makes somebody rage. Warmonger lets you make everybody around you rage. It even makes people who willingly accept that spell without a will save gain the quicken condition just to strike. So you are all about inciting people into battle. If you ever wanted to play a character whose whole spiel was, we want to turn this into a murder hobo campaign, I suggest looking at Cultist of the Dead God, because you will make people angry. We're going time. Defender of the Faith is a war priest only cleric. You share pain. It's a lot like, think of it as the shield other archetype. You share pain with a designated protector that you designate every day, and you can even once per day breath of life them if they're gonna die and you're not. And I think you take some... Oh, yeah, you have to redirect some of the damage that you take as well. So there's that. Elemental Savant. It is a very, very versatile dedication that could go on pretty much any... I think anyone, actually. I was going to say any caster, but pretty much anyone could take it. Because it gives you basic spellcasting benefits. I would probably use this with the Secrets of Magic Elementalist spell list. It gives you, you get some resistances to elemental damage. Of course, you're going to have that feat. It also gives you the ability to add your charisma modifier to whenever you cast a spell with an elemental trait, which you're going to get with your basic spell casting, and the ability to blend different elements together into your spells. Cool. Enforcer of the Faith is another, anyone could take this. It's more of it's for a kind of a niche campaign, to be honest. It lets you detect if somebody worships a deity, eventually if they worship a deity who is substantially different than yours or against yours, and do bonus damage against those kinds of enemies. So it is for a specific kind of campaign that has to have those elements in them somewhere. Jungle Trap Spotter is a trapped based dedication. It does stuff with natural hazards. It disarms them. It moves past them without triggering them. And I don't know what to say about that. It's really good against if you have a campaign, a wilderness survival campaign with the free archetype, I would seriously consider picking Jungle Trap Spotter, especially if nobody in the party has the Trap Finder feat. It also gives you a whole slurry of additional feats like Wilderness Spotter, Delay Trap, Perpetual Scout, Terrain Master. A lot of these are archetype feats from things like Horizon Hunter and even class feats from like Rogue and Ranger that you would have to do so many different multi-class dedications to kind of feel out this fantasy of playing a guide that it's nice to have one archetype where take that and you got it all. Mage Slayer. Killing mages, one of my favorite pastimes here. Mage Slayer is the I just gonna say it's the Tuaru fantasy, the Imagine Breaker fantasy of being able to punch magic. You get attack of opportunity only against spellcasters, but it will disrupt the spell on a critical hit, and it does a free counteract check even if you hit. So even if you don't critically hit, you get a counteract check on a hit. It gets bonuses, it gets saving throws against spells. It can ignore the AC bonus granted by the shield spell and just punch straight through the shield, which is really cool. I wish it could do that at higher levels against other kinds of things. It kind of can, because you can, when you strike the melee weapon with anti-magic strike at 14, you get a free counteract check against the target on existing spells that they have. So you could also debuff people. You can hit people with Dimensional Anchor against all those pesky casters who just want to teleport away when they're about to die, which right there tells me that if you want to take this archetype, make sure your GM understands that you will be walking anti-magic, because at level 18 you do get a 5-foot emanation centered around you anti-magic field. So make sure your GM's okay with that. Make sure they sleep on it. Make sure they take a week thinking to themselves, especially at higher levels, will there be a point where your character will just not be able to participate in the adventure because you're walking anti-magic? Because I have played a Forsaker 3 times now. They're a prestige class from Song and Silence that basically you're walking anti-magic. And 2 of those 3 times, we've had problems where, like, an ally wanted to teleport us and couldn't, so we have to walk instead. It happens, so consider it. Still really cool class and looks really fun for a one-shot. Total fun for a one-shot. Just running around, just punching wizards and distrusting magic and that whole spiel. I love it. The Nitainem is another one. It's another warrior class from the human ancestry, although anyone could take it. It is based on being a brawler. So if you want to be like a monk, but you're not into the whole monastery key focus thing, this is your way to become a brawler. You get improved unarmed damage. You can make lethal attacks with it. Kind of reminds me of the martial artist archetype, but it has a few extra little tricks you could do there, like challenging people to a trial by combat, creating this kind of zone of, in my head, everywhere 10 feet around me is an arena, and I'll get a bonus to attack rolls against other creatures who happen to be in my arena. I think that's really flavorful and cool. It reminds me kind of the Aiajutsu Master from Katanagatari. I like that a lot. Yeah, we're on time. All right, so Protector of the Green is the Blood Rager archetype. We don't have a Blood Rager in 2e, so instead you have to have the Rage class feature, the Animal Instinct, and a Sorcerer Bloodline that casts Primal spells. So you either have to be a Sorcerer multiclass Barbarian or a Barbarian multiclass Sorcerer, or I suppose you could be anything and take both multiclasses, but it is kind of intended for a Barbarian multiclass Sorcerer. It gives you additional feats of favored terrain, primal evolution, and greater physical evolution. For those of you who've never played a druid, those give you fun bonuses when you wild shape, if I recall correctly. Yes. And their special feat, Rage of the Wild, lets them ignore the requirements of share rage when you stoke the rage of a creature with the animal trait. Normally you can't share rage animals, and it also lets you use share rage as a free action if you have contagious rage. So long story short, when you rage, the animal instinct will give you these fun abilities like claws or what have you, and then you get to use primal evolution to add additional fun abilities to yourself. Then you could use Rage of the Wild to not only make yourself rage, but if you have it, make your animal companion rage as well, far more easily than if you didn't have this archetype. Quick Shifter is the shape-shifting archetype. Anyone who can transform, such as with a battle form spell or the change shape ability, if you want to play a Kitsune, can take this archetype. Its main feat as a reaction effectively lets you nimble dodge, which we know, as I've said numerous times on the stream, is not the best feat. It's kind of it's not a good feat. This does satisfy the prerequisites of Nimble Roll, so you could take the Nimble Roll feat, which is an additional feat from this archetype that gives you an additional bonus when you use Nimble Dodge. In addition, that first reaction from Quick Shifter Dedication that lets you effectively Nimble Dodge gives you extra bonuses when you take their extra feats. So you're not just getting the +2. You're getting, for example, with Defensive Shift, you get a big resistance against the triggering attack, equal to 2 plus half your level, or 4 plus your level against precision damage. Great. Startling Shift. When you shift, you get a free feint against adjacent creatures within melee reach. Shifting Organs. When you use your Quiff Shifter dedication to shift away, you get even more resistance. And Reactive Shift, probably the most useful feat here, lets you use your Quick Shifter dedication reaction to activate any polymorph ability or spell that alters your form when you become the target of the triggering attack. Which, yes, being able to cast what is usually a 2-action spell is really strong as a reaction. But this does make you slowed 1 during your next turn to make up for it. So you're kind of using your reaction and 1 future action to transform when you're targeted by an attack, which would then also give you the damage reduction and the AC boost, in addition to now being a frog or whatever, a dragon, an elemental, whatever you transform into. I like this because, from personal experience, playing a battle form character has its difficulties. It's not... The battle forms are very much set you in line with where you're expected to be as a character, so it's hard to punch up in battle form. It's hard to get the benefits of all the buffs that you might otherwise have in battle form from your allies or items. So this does help that quite a bit. Reliquarium was the Occultist archetype. It gives you some of those abilities that you might be missing as a Occultist in 2e. Specifically, it gives you the ability to... It's called the close reading focus spell. It's lets you read objects, read their history, who owned them, get little hints about them. It gives you object reading. And then the Speak for the Dead gives you more bonuses to object reading and lets you effectively cast object reading on corpses, kind of as talking corpse and kind of as object reading. This is an uncommon archetype for a reason, because object reading can do icky things to campaigns who want to keep their secrets close to their chest. So again, ask your GM about this, which is why it's uncommon. Shark Rider. If you ever want to ride a shark, this is it. You get a shark, it's bigger than a normal shark, and you for an animal companion, and you could ride it. Wish I could say more about it than that, but that's it. They have a lot of really cool feats here. As you can see, there's like 10 feats in this archetype, and they're all really good if you can, if you're in a campaign where you could mount a shark companion and ride on it. Like 2 action, move and strike, and your shark gets to make a strike. That's great. Reactionary shark gives your shark a bite. Is that what it does? You fail a reflex saving throw. Oh, no. It lets you treat your degree of success 1 higher if you are mounted on a shark and you fail a reflex saving throw. Great. Eventually, your shark becomes somewhat intelligent, which is pretty cool, and it gives it a animal companion specialization of your choice. So if you ever wanted an intelligent, incredible shark, you can take incredible shark and then specialized shark, and you get to ride a shark. Soldier of Fortune is the mercenary archetype. In addition to some fun additional feats like Antagonize and After You, it lets you once per day, once per session, it lets you reroll the first time each session, use a fortune effect to reroll a die and get a lower result. You may reroll it 1 more time. If you've ever been at it, if you feel like you always roll lower on your hero point, this might be the archetype for you. The Soldier of Fortune is all about being a mercenary and being a Soldier of Fortune, which is about making sure that people know you're worth it. You're more expensive than a contingent of soldiers, but you know what? You're more important than a contingent of soldiers. You might not be, but you got to make sure they think that. Otherwise, you won't get paid enough. Outnumbered defense gives you bonuses if you have no allies around you, but you have a lot of enemies around you. You get some AC bonuses. Brazen Swagger, whenever you intimidate somebody, you get a bonus to saving throws against fear effects, and you get some temporary hit points if you get a critical success. And did you see that? When you do something that gives you a critical success, you get a bonus to your next charisma-based skill action. Finally, my favorite feat here, How Much Gold? 3 action, uncommon for a reason. This lets you lie about surrendering to your enemy. You're basically spending all 3 actions to negotiate an offer to rejoin the encounter as your former enemy's ally using deception for initiative. So you get to reroll initiative and effectively rejoin the combat. And on a critical success, you extend the offer to any of your former allies. So on a critical success, you could even say, hey guys, let's all go in on this. Like, why are we fighting these guys anyway? We could be on the same side. So it is limited in when you could use it. And once you do something that makes it clear that you still are the enemy's enemy, you become enemies with them again. But for a brief while, it could give you access to some healing auras that only affect allies. It could really mess up your opponent's strategy here. It could give you the bonus from Bless. It could just make people think a little bit differently about you for a while. Wormslayer gives you bonuses against fighting dragons. Wingbreaker, oh, that's a feat for Wormslayer, lets you knock them down when they're going down. Zemi Medium it was for the medium in 1E. In 2E, it gives you bonuses against fighting incorporeal ghosts. It gives you bonuses to using your Zemi if you are constructing one with that Create Zemi ritual. It lets you become a full-on exorcist and get the Coquin Ancestry feat Zemi Exorcist that lets you knock possession out of people and knock people out of being mentally controlled. And I didn't think this would take that long, but that's great actually, because we're knocking right here up on Shaman. Shaman was a class designed by myself, Tony Sanders. We had a team working on this, and really love what we came out with. And I think I would rather do a review on Shamans later. A totally biased review, as this was the part that I worked the most on. Shamans are really cool. Long story short, you get spirits. You get more spirits as you level up. Every spirit has a template like flames or ancestors or what have you. In addition, you could further flavor your spirits by giving them dedication feats. And when you enter a trance, you could only cast those spirit spells, and you get that spirit's dedication feats. There's some more limitations to it than that, but that's the very, 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 very vague basics of how the class works. They're spellcasters. They use Druid spellcasting for their spell progression, and they have some focus cantrips or focus spells that all their lower level focus spells either do a buff or a debuff. I'll give them that too. There's some cool equipment in here. Leather and kelp armor, hide, palmwood, heavy armor, mundane equipment that fits the Boricubos theme very well and kind of gives you an idea of what kind of weapons they use. There's a GM's guide to Boricubos that I don't want to go into too much because spoilers, but look how awesome that art is. There's a ton of information here about different places you could go, different names of different potential places, different names for people. Then there's a whole section here on magic items. The magic items here, again, they're flavorful, they're cool. A lot of great stuff in here for jungles, a lot of cool stuff in here for kind of arcane magic. There's some new rods, some new wands. There's so much cool. It looks like I'm gonna have to split this up and do another Boricubos, honestly, because there's so many cool items I want to get into here. Sticky tongue mask, man. I've always wanted a mask that gives me a frog tongue on like 2 of my characters at least, so I do enjoy that very much. There's some monsters in here. There's the Adaro. There's the Benthor, kind of looks like a evil kind of mix between half kelp, half jellyfish person thing. There's some new dragons and some new drakes in here. They have stats for Formians in here, so if you ever want to bring Formians into 2E, here are your stats: Taskmaster, Myrmidon, and Queen. And then you have the adventure. Full-on adventure. Lots of spoilers here, lots of enemies, lots of stuff, and your pre-gens. And there you have it. That is the first half, at least. I will go into Shamans later if people want me to, although it's my own class, so I would rather go over some more Infinite stuff next time we meet. Boricubos, link is in chat. Lost Isles, total campaign setting and tons of player options. Great setting. Primarily written by Miguel Colon. Love his work. Love this book. It is amazing and awesome, and I love it. Before we leave, though, I do have one more shout out I have to do. I did Quest for the Frozen Flame stuff last week or the week prior, and I forgot to talk about this. Just going to bring it up really fast. It's an adventure, so I won't go into it too much because there's spoilers. But the Feathered Valley is a 0-level prequel for Quest for the Frozen Flame. So if you want to do a 0-level, if you want to use the variant rules for 0-level, this will get you from level 0 to level 1 and then go seamlessly into Quest for the Frozen Flame. It's great for getting to know each other's characters without worrying too much about showing off your class features and just frankly extending your AP a little bit more. from the beginning rather than from the end. It's also a great way to see if your characters are going to be cohesive. If you have an idea and you're like, maybe I can't roleplay this, hey, this will give you one free adventure before the main path story starts. It's a really cool looking adventure. Balancing 0-level adventures is a little bit more difficult than first level adventures, so I'm glad they went ahead and did it. It has items, maps, monsters, everything you need to run this cool adventure. The Feathered Valley, go check it out. Yeah. So thank you very much for showing up here. I really enjoyed working on Boricubos, and I hope people love using it because there's so much amazing stuff in there, and I learned so much about this amazingly cool culture, and I want to see more and more stuff from this and other cultures like this in my tabletop role-playing games. It's touching and awesome, and that was my completely biased review of Boricubos. Thank you very much. One more announcement. Next Friday, I will be doing a show, but it will be at 3 p.m. instead of 4 because Paizo has its own show at 4 o'clock on Fridays once a month, where they will be showing off all their newest awesome stuff, including hopefully, I'm going to say spoilers for possibly, maybe, but not quite, Book of the Dead. That's my way of saying I'm not 100% sure, but check out the blog. I think it's the latest blog post on Paizo.com where they go over their Paizo Fridays and what they'll be doing. I will be sticking around after my show to watch it, and hopefully you all will too, because I love Paizo Fridays. So thank you very much for coming along and going through this book with me. Like I said, I will be back next Friday at 3 p.m. And you could also catch me Tuesday at 6 p.m. where I will be opening up booster packs to make second edition monsters out of whatever cards I pull from them. Thank you again for showing up. Have yourself a great weekend. Roll lots of 20s, and don't forget you might have a hero point.